Thank you to everybody who subscribed to me recently. My videos are cheap because I'm broke. And understand what I do here. All my videos are dedicated to upholding the presumption of innocence for everybody, including people like David Anthony Burke, who have been accused of the most serious felonies that we have on the California Criminal Code. In this video, I'm only going to go over 2 of the 3 felonies that he was charged with. The first-degree murder charge here, and the continuous sexual abuse of a minor charge here, starting with the last one first. Since September 2025, people have been wondering, because of all the rumors we heard that he and Celeste had been dating for a while, why he wasn't arrested, based on the strength of the statements alone. Part of how we defend the fairness of our trials is we don't allow any and all persons with a story to come forward and say whatever they want. That's this rule right here. Federal Rules of Evidence and California Evidence Codes explain this. Witnesses have to give direct personal knowledge like this. This is what direct knowledge looks like. This witness has a clear line of sight to the alleged illegal activity. Not these people. They're on the other side of a wall. They have no idea what's going on here. It does not matter what this witness comes around and says later. Everything we get in court has to come from this witness and this witness only. And more than that, we need a reason to even believe this witness. Who are you? Where were you when these allegations took place? What did you see? What did you do next? These are the kinds of questions we need answered before we even begin writing down the kind of statements that this witness may have to offer. Now, also in the beginning, we got a lot of vague statements and general statements saying that they seemed like a couple out in public, even though they were never reported to have done any intimate displays out in public. But that was the general impression people got. That's not good enough. We need something more specific. We need a witness to tell us there was kissing, other prolonged physical contact that is consistent with people being couples. Those are the kinds of statements we would need to move forward from there. Now, also our biggest problem, because Celeste is no longer with us, any statements generally that she may have made to this witness would be dismissed as hearsay. That's this rule right here. Federal Rules of Evidence, California Evidence Codes explain this rule. When you go and look up this rule yourself, it's going to say that the statement is an out-of-court statement offered for the truth of the matter asserted. In other words, this is a statement that's offered as a truth to stand by itself, but we don't actually have any evidence to support it. In this case, Celeste is the victim witness. She would have been the evidence we need to support that statement. Here's another example. We have other people saying that they knew girls that David was dating and that they were minors. This is no good. That is an out-of-court statement. That's this person right here. That person is not qualified to be here during the in-court processes. If this witness exists, we have to hear it from the victim witness. The victim witness has to be the one in here to tell this judge what this guilty man may have done. And that's why, in order to actually enforce the continuous abuse charge that you're seeing here, we needed the kind of evidence that we have now. The text messages, videos, photos, everything that the state is alleging at this time. To understand how David may defend himself at trial, you have to know the difference between a fact and an argument in the courtroom. The story as a whole is not one big fact. The facts are the individual pieces of evidence, like the witness statements, the digital evidence, the body, DNA. These are all individual facts that the government is going to put together and then argue, taken as a whole, prove that David violated this first-degree murder statute, meaning that he had a conscious plan of attack against this girl. No matter how bad the facts look, though, he can always lean on this rule right here, the relevance of the evidence, meaning that when the government raises this evidence, the government has to prove that each individual fact is actually relevant to this first-degree murder charge. Now, we already know the government's theory. We've all probably heard it a dozen times at this point. So now let's look at some of the possible deficits that may be waiting in this evidence. In other words, showing a lack of relevance to the first-degree murder charge. We haven't heard anything about cameras in this area. We haven't heard from the Uber driver. The driver would be an admissible witness, as I explained a moment ago. If that witness does say Celeste walked in the front door, then that's it. It doesn't matter if it's on camera or not. That is admissible. The court can use that. But we haven't heard that at this point, so we don't even know if anybody saw her go into the house. We know there's a 20-minute gap where, let's see, what was it, 10:10 until 10:30. In this 20-minute gap, we don't actually know exactly what happened. We do know this was a homicide. That is not a fact in dispute. But the weapon that was actually used to kill this girl was never actually recovered. Now we also have these text messages that are from David, and the government says David wrote these text messages just to make himself look innocent, that this was all part of the same first-degree murder plan. These are all actions that he took after the fact to make himself look like he was actually innocent. However, that is a circumstantial piece of evidence. The jury is going to receive an instruction explaining what circumstantial evidence means. These are pieces of evidence that necessarily rely on other pieces of evidence. In this case, the text messages don't matter to the jury if they're not even convinced he was responsible for the death of this girl at his Hollywood Hills home. And now, I didn't tackle the mutilation charge in this video because it's a given that if he is responsible for this girl's death, he was probably the only one who would have had the opportunity to actually commit the mutilation as well. It stands to reason, since nobody else was charged at this time. Personally, I don't think anybody will be charged at this time, except for David himself. So that's all I have to say about this evidence. If you like what you heard, like, subscribe, and see you next time. Thank you for listening.